Imagine you are accused of being a squatter, but you feel you've come by the house you're living in. Honestly, you feel like you're there because you've signed a rental agreement. You think everything's on the up and up. And then the next thing you know, that is not the case. Kevin Stewart joins us live to talk about this crazy story. Kevin, break it down for us. This woman signed a rental agreement, thought she was living in this house legally.
Yeah, barely living in there. This all happened back on Friday, and then she found out through some detective work, checking court records, that the person who on the lease said they owned the house really didn't own the house. You know, we're talking about a family with a small child and a caretaker. They lived in Clayton County. They were looking for a new, bigger home to live in for their family. They found a broker who was going to send them to a couple different houses. They went to a house here in South Fulton. They had already paid $4,000, which included the first month's rent. When they went inside the home using a smart lock, they were excited. They said, "Oh, this is a perfect house." Then when they attempted to try to put the utilities, the water, in their name, they couldn't do it. They were running into a problem. They reached back out to the broker who directed them to the house. They said, "Oh, I'll do that. I'll take care of it. Just send me $300. That was a problem. They hadn't even had the keys yet. And so what the woman did was she looked at the lease, looked at the owner on that lease. Then she looked at court records in Fulton County, and they didn't match up. She called the owner of the house, which actually is a corporate owner, a rent-to-own type of rental home company based out of Arizona called Progress Residential. When she talked to them, this is what she found out.
And I said, okay, can you tell me if you are the owners of this property? I gave her the address. She said, wait a minute. And she come in, she said, yes, ma'am, we are. My heart fell to the floor. And I said, ma'am, we are living in this property. And do you know this man? She said, no, ma'am.
Yeah, that's a tough spot. Now, she has been given a summons by the city of South Fulton, which basically alleges that she is a squatter. Now, we did reach out to Progress Residential, and this is a quote, comment from them. These type of rental scams are all too common, and we have a dedicated team in place that supports individuals who may have been victims of fraud. This team collaborates closely with law enforcement to investigate these reports. Ariel?
Kevin, I mean, I just feel for her so strongly. What a horrible situation. You can feel the emotion in her reaction just at this entire situation. How many of us, you know, might go through a process thinking we're doing everything right, only to find out this is not how it is? Were there any red flags along the way that in hindsight she might have realized, and things that we could keep an eye out for? Because I feel like a lot of people are probably thinking, hey, how do I keep this from happening to me if I'm looking to rent a home?
Well, yeah, you know, the one thing that she did after the fact that is suggested you do before the fact is match up the leases. You see, double check to see who is the owner. If you look at the lease and it has one name on it and you go and check county records, like at the tax assessor, and they don't match up, that's a problem. Now, the other thing here, the police report does say that the lease did appear to look fraudulent. And when we looked at that lease, there were some things that did not look correct on there, and she just didn't catch them. She said that the fact that it had stamps saying Fulton County on it made it seem legitimate to her, which, you know, to be fair, you know, maybe for some folks that might be the, you know, government stamp. That sounds right, but that is not the best barometer. And probably more importantly, if you look at the top of that lease, there is a judge on it, and it is a judge in a color picture, and it has a, I guess you would say, a good 18th, 17th century wig on it, like you might see with George Washington, or in, over in the British lands over there, with a wig on, which did not look legitimate, and that probably is a good red flag right there.
Yeah, Kevin, you know, those are just things that I think we should all keep an eye out for, but my heart absolutely goes out to her because no one should be found in this situation. Kevin, thank you so much. I'm back here in the newsroom trying to get some information on this because, you know, when you think about this story, it's like these are things that we look at and we might say, hey, this is a red flag to us. But if someone's going through this situation for the first time and they're trying to make sense of it, this might be something that they overlook. So I feel like her tale is cautionary to a lot of people who may be trying to rent a home at this time.
Yeah, one of the things that's really interesting is that, you know, we've actually been working this for a couple of days. We actually shot most of the story yesterday, and it caught me off guard because one of the things is like, well, how do you get into the house? Well, there was a smart lock, and she used an app, Rently, which you have to provide your ID, do facial recognition, and so she was able to get into the house that way. And she doesn't even have the keys, so she's, you know, she's trying to talk to this guy when we talked to her yesterday to not just try to get into not just to get the water turned on because she doesn't have running water because it's not in her name, but she was trying to find out you know, just what's the next steps here in terms of what she needs to get going. So it was quite a difficult situation for her without a doubt, with no keys and no running water.
Yeah, Kevin, as a final question here, you know, is she able to work it out and keep that home? What are some of the next steps? And I know you kind of touched on this, but just for people who are streaming along who might be concerned about how she's doing, what does that look like?
Yeah, this is interesting. She has a court appearance in 2 weeks where she'll be able to state her case if she's a squatter or not, and she will present that lease, and hopefully that'll work out for her. But she'll be staying in there in the interim. What Progress did tell me is that she has an opportunity right now, if she wants to stay in that house, she can apply online and try to get into that house or another one of their properties. But she told me that she got scammed out of so much money, she doesn't have money for that house or any other house right now. So that's a real tough spot for her. You know, she gave money cash to the guy and the rest of it through a Chime account. And one of the things that, going back to what you were talking about, which might be a problem, if you're going through a residential property management company or a larger company like this, a rent-to-own type of situation, you're going to be going through a portal or something like that, as opposed to exchanging cash and giving cash apps and chimes, you know, if you were dealing with an individual. So that is a red flag that we should point out.
You know, Kevin, it's a lot of things after the fact. Anyone can look at it and go, hey, should have, could have, would have. These are things to point out. But until you find yourself in that situation and you're trying to make sense of it, you know, it can be very difficult. So if you hear of any ways to support her or things that the community's doing, let us know. But in the meantime, Kevin, I'll let you get back to news gathering and putting the story together. I appreciate your time, the conversation so much, and I hope this woman is able to find a place to live and to get the money needed to continue to have a place to stay. So that's very important. Kevin Stewart, thank you so much for joining us.